So I'm really interested to hear how things have gone over the last 4 weeks. I know you've done quite a few experiments. How many have you done over the last 4 weeks now?
Oh, I'm not even so sure, James. I've done it, I've been doing it each day, and to start with a select number of clients, so I'd do it maybe 1 or 2, and then more recently I've been doing it with so up to 6 a day. So I'm doing the 2 days a week. So
Gee.
yeah.
So quite a lot then.
A few, yes.
Good. So sort of taking it from the start, I'm really interested how the first one went.
Yeah.
So that was like dipping your toes in the water.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it went really well actually, and I must admit I was surprised when I was doing it. Because I introduced it to her and she was so happy to do it, and she's actually a nursing student, so she was like, oh, I'm so reassured that you're trying to introduce evidence-based practice into your and I was just like, oh, this couldn't have gone any better.
A good choice.
So it went really well, so there was no issues. It was a shame that I didn't get to address the other issue though. If she had have got got annoyed, it was a shame we didn't get to deal with that, but that'll come at a later point.
Yeah. Oh, great. So she was actually even adding to the evidence-based practice. Fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
And then what about the next week? How did the rest of the first week go? And
so I was introducing it in the first week with clients that I felt more comfortable with, that I knew would understand the rationale.
Yeah.
So I knew that they would get why I was doing it. Yeah. And so, for the most part, they were all happy to do it. I had one client who refused to do it, but the reason he did was that he had another appointment, so he was running late, and so the next time he came in he was happy to do them.
Right.
Just simply that we didn't allow enough time for him to complete it and get off to his next appointment.
Makes a lot of sense. Absolutely.
So aside from that, excuse me, they were all happy to do it. Nobody seemed particularly annoyed. They all said yes. I was digging for even annoyance, and there wasn't any there. Yeah. So you don't mind doing it? No, they were all happy.
Yeah. And what kind of rationale were you giving them?
Well, we'd spoken about the idea of it being like getting their blood pressure taken when they go to the doctor. So I've been talking to them about that this is an evidence-based thing, that being able to do these measures gives us a really quick way of getting a picture of how the week has looked for them, and allows us to communicate more effectively, as well as being able to track their progress across a number of sessions as well, and using that blood pressure metaphor as being like, this is just us checking your blood pressure almost. Again, all of those clients seem to understand the rationale, and I had no issues. Nobody seemed annoyed or put out.
So you haven't had any adverse
reactions? Not with those first ones. I had one client later on who wasn't necessarily... I knew that she wouldn't get the rationale of it.
Yeah.
So she has an intellectual disability, and so I had to modify it. So I didn't use the GAD7. I didn't use those ones with her. I ended up just using, I forgot the name of the outcome measure, James.
The PHQ-9 or
no, the one that's on the VAS.
On the VAS?
Yes, the weekly rating scale.
The outcome rating scale.
Yes, excuse me. I used that with her because she was able to understand that a bit better.
Yeah. Good choice, yeah.
Again, she didn't seem so crash hot on doing it, but agreed to do it and hasn't dropped out of therapy, so that's a good sign.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. But overall, people didn't have the reaction that I feared they would.
Yeah. All right, so if I recall rightly, your prediction was, let me just write this up. So your prediction was that people would be annoyed, and that was at 70%.
Yes.
And that they'd be reluctant, and that also was at 70%. And that they might drop out.
Yeah.
And that was at 50%. So I'm wondering where you sit now. What your beliefs are.
what my
Now,
beliefs are.
that was start. And now.
Dropout is 0. I don't believe that at all
Yeah,
anymore.
okay.
I think it would be incredibly unlikely
Yeah.
for that to ever happen as a result of doing this.
Right.
Being annoyed and reluctant, they've definitely come down. So a couple of clients were reluctant, but happily did them. So I would say that was more like a reluctant would be more like 10%.
Yeah.
And annoyed is 5%. Very few clients were annoyed, if at all.
Yeah.
Certainly not to the degree that I thought they might be.
Right.
At having to do it. I thought that they would think it was quite an imposition, having to come in a little bit early to the sessions, take the time to complete it. You know, I felt that might have been an imposition, but nobody has expressed that. Nobody seems to mind, and I checked with the reception staff. Actually, nobody's grumbled to them either.
Yeah.
So,
Great. Great.
yeah.
And so, what have you learned then about the use of outcome rating measures on a regular basis with clients?
Well, certainly I've learnt that that's all untrue, but I've also, you know, when I have done it as a follow-up, it has been really helpful for those clients. So initially my experiment was to just use it for the first time with them and explain the rationale. Yeah. I've had an opportunity to present it at follow-up with them, so being able to compare their results from week 1 to week 2. And that was really helpful for a number of clients. Some of them had said that it was really good. What was helpful about it is it gave us a point of discussion, if that makes sense. It provided our sessions were more focused, absolutely. I think, as a result of that. And I think, you know, for one client in particular, we were missing the point. It brought us back to the point. So we were dealing with other issues when the real issue we'd missed.
Right.
And so by doing the outcome rating, it allowed us to have that discussion about
and so
that.
seeing that client hadn't shifted much
exactly.
on their measures, and then being able to discuss that, is that
what
you mean?
Exactly.
Okay.
So, but also, you know, the issue that she presented with, we'd addressed.
Right.
But there was still another issue that we hadn't been addressing. Because we were still focused on the initial presenting problem. Yeah, so it allowed us to reshift and focus on the real issue. That was now the problem, not the original problem.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. That's great. So it's been very useful on that level of actually seeing both how clients are reacting to the outcome measure and indeed seeing the value of the outcome measures.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, so you've now done behavioural experiments for yourself for 4 weeks and kind of really experienced it on the inside.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what that experience has meant for you in terms of more generally the use of behavioural experiments in your clinical practice.
Certainly, it's you know, I don't. What it's done, I think, is again it was being able to use the actual paperwork that goes along with it. Was really helpful. Being able to really explore what my safety behaviours were, what were the issues that were getting in the way, and being really honest with myself around those things was really very helpful. And I think that really helped me to get an insight in how valuable that is to do with the clients as well, to actually go through that process and really be very specific about it rather than talking about it on a more superficial level. Yeah.
So it sounds like you really kind of got the process side of things.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, in terms of, was there anything in terms of your sort of interaction with clients that changed in any way? Did it impact at that level? It obviously impacted at the technical level. I'm hearing.
Yes. I think what it does do is it gives you, again, that felt experience, I think, is something that was really strong. You know, when you're talking to clients about using a behavioural experiment, I think we get it, but we don't. Like the felt experience and how powerful that actually was, and really getting in touch with that was something that the behavioural experiment allowed me to do that I probably hadn't really realised what that was actually like for a client. I guess it gave me a greater insight into what that experience was actually like.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so, did that impact in any way on kind of how you were with the client, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think it meant that I was probably, a little bit more patient with them in terms of, of understanding why they might be so reluctant if they're feeling a 30, say, on that, or a 50, you know how powerful that actually is, even though they know it up here, to actually have that felt experience. They know it on a rational level, but they don't necessarily feel it yet. And so that gave me, I guess, a bit more empathy for them.
Yeah.
In terms
so
of...
you noticing that difference between like the rational and the gut level.
Exactly.
Yeah, and seeing that in for the clients and how that must be for the clients.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess just, as you said, being more patient, more kind of nuanced with them, perhaps.
And I don't know what their experience of that was, but mine was sort of, just that sense of being a bit more patient and a bit more, okay, let's go with it. Let's just explore this a little bit more, taking my time with it to a greater degree, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.